And as we pulled up next to the truck, I was relieved to find out that there didn't appear to be any damage anywhere, so that was great. And the reason for that was that they informed us that they had just began to slow down to negotiate a bit of a bumpy terrain, and that became their saving grace really, because they hit it at very low speed, thank goodness. And that was great. But the only negative, of course, was that there was this fine dust everywhere, all through the truck and all over them, which eventually, of course, we had a big laugh about, dust everywhere. So anyway, that was a real close call, and from then on, of course, we drove very soberly, keeping a real close watch on that terrain. Oh my goodness. Well, we had made considerable progress the last couple of days, and our next port of call would be the small oasis settlement of Sahara, which was now no more than about an hour or two away, according to the map. So we were pretty excited about the prospect of rolling into Sahara, having not seen anything other than sort of raw desert for nearly a week now. And so as we continued on into Sahara, we were greatly surprised to find quite a thriving little oasis settlement, and found ourselves a beautiful little isolated tree-lined mini oasis, if you like, on the outskirts of Sahara. And the thing that I remember most about that beautiful oasis was not only the stark desert beauty, but the beautiful fresh dates you could just pick off the date palms. And even today, I can still taste those dates in my mouth. Beautiful, moist and sweet, and just magnificent, just like eating a peach. Oh man, they were the most beautiful dates you could imagine. As well as finally being able to wash in that beautiful oasis desert water. Just beautiful. After a week of desert dust all through everything, including our hair and all that sort of thing. So it was nice to be able to just jump in the water there and wash yourself, have a good wash. So we were now about 1,500 kilometres south of Algiers in northern Algeria, and we were definitely experiencing central Sahara conditions, no question about that. We had also travelled, like I say, about 500 kilometres since the border post, so we were pretty happy with our progress. But we also noticed that the water in the oasis was completely undrinkable. You could wash yourself in it, but you wouldn't want to drink it because it was so salty. But of course, we also knew that this small community must have a well somewhere. They must have a water supply somewhere. And of course, we did find it eventually, which was great, because we were just about out of water. We only had 20% of our water supply left. We had used 80% of our water supply up until now, so we were pretty lucky to get some more water here. In fact, Sahara, according to the map, meant good water. So we kind of figured that we should be okay on the waterfront. Nice fresh water, that's good. We also noticed a reasonable distance away from the tree-lined oasis that we were staying at, a couple of these nomadic Tuareg huts situated on the sand dune terrain, approximately about 3 kilometres away from the waterhole that we were at. And it was highly likely that the residents of this small oasis settlements, the Tuaregs, lived here permanently. This was their permanent habitation. And it was unlikely that many of them had ever ventured beyond this oasis, because apart from the fact that there was no vehicles here, Gardea was 600 kilometres to the north, and the next oasis was 500 kilometres to the south. So the people here were no doubt regarded as genuine locals, I would say. I doubt if many of them have ever ventured from this area. And so we drove out near their huts, out on the sandy terrain, and made camp there for the evening. However, not before making friends with the two somewhat shy Tuareg families. We went and made friends with them first before we set up camp. And you know what? They were just amazing people. They had such little possessions, but they welcomed us into their huts just like we were family. It was amazing. We just felt so incredibly honoured and privileged to meet these people. They are beautiful people, man. All they owned, apart from the camels outside, was inside that hut. made of sticks that they had gathered and sort of weaved some sort of type covering over that stick frame. That's how they created their dwelling. And it was used as a heat protection, obviously, because the skies were virtually clear all year round out there in the middle of Sahara. And Sahara is regarded as one of the hottest places on earth, so man, they had to deal with that hot temperature every day. So all a nomadic family requires out there in the desert is heat protection during the day and warmth at night, because Sahara's temperatures could also plummet to well below freezing point every night too. Gets down to about -4 degrees centigrade or 25 degrees Fahrenheit. It's pretty damn cold, as well as one of the hottest places on earth. It's amazing. 50 degrees centigrade during the day, 120 degrees Fahrenheit, and down to sometimes -4 degrees centigrade or 25 degrees Fahrenheit at night. That's about 180 degree temperature change every 24 hours. 180 degrees, it changes every 24 hours. That's pretty extreme, man. Down to 25 degrees Fahrenheit at night, up again to 120 degrees Fahrenheit during the day, and back down to 25 degrees Fahrenheit again that evening. So it changes like 120 degrees every 12 hours. That's pretty radical, man. A radical change, that radical, going from extreme heat to extreme cold within 12 hours. Fantastic. It's just amazing. And it was so noticeable how the sand dunes seemed to be slowly engulfing the tiny little settlement of Sahara as well. So really, they had issues here, man. Extreme temperature changes and sand shifting everywhere. I mean, they had the issues. However, the Tuareg families that we introduced ourselves to just fully embraced us, and they were just so kind to us, man. It was so humbling, really. And even their kids were really comfortable around us. I mean, that was a real treat that their kids embraced us and were quite happy to be around us and were very friendly to us. Their little kids. That was awesome, man. However, as we continued to make ourselves more acquainted with this Tuareg family, just an hour later, as we were about to sit around the campfire, my jaw was about to drop and I would be frozen in time. Oh my goodness, just stunned and paralysed at the totally unexpected news I was about to hear. Oh my goodness. But at this very moment, life was an absolute delight with this Tuareg family, because they opened their home up to us and it was fantastic. Even giving Paula and Katrina the opportunity to experience some Tuareg fashion. It was fun. Which was really nice of them to let the girls try on their personal clothes, if you like. That was fantastic. I think it looks better on Mum, was one of the little kids probably was thinking to himself. Oh, I think it looks better on Mum. Oh, it was such a treat, man, to see how they lived out there in the desert. And all their possessions amazingly hung off the ceiling, which made for plenty of room, of course. And I thought that was pretty ingenious. And this is a picture of the ceiling immediately above our heads. There was hardly a space anywhere. The whole ceiling was just covered in all their possessions. It was amazing. And I also noticed a really old sword hanging up there, hanging from the ceiling. And I asked Mr. Tuareg if I could have a look at it. And Mr. Tuareg got it down for me, and I was staring at it for quite some time. I showed great interest in it because, man, it was fascinating looking at this old sword. I was pointing to all the engravings on this sheath of the sword, and he could see that I was absolutely fascinated by the sword. And after some time of sort of very basic communication and trying to determine how old the sword was, we finally, after a long period of trying to find out some very minute information, finally get across to one another that this was his great-grandfather's sword. And of course I was absolutely fascinated that this sword had no doubt seen battle. It was clearly more than about, I guess, 100 years old, I would imagine. And I'm just staring in amazement at this sword. It fascinated me. But what amazed me more was that as we're about to leave the tent, as the sun was beginning to set, was that he picked up the sword and handed it to me. I just couldn't believe my eyes. He was offering me his great-grandfather's sword. Are you kidding me? I just held the sword in my hands in amazement. You're giving the sword to me? You're kidding? And he nods. And here it is, the very same sword. And here it is. Unfortunately, much worse for the wear, I would have to say, because, well, I'll explain that to you why it's much worse for the wear. But this is the original. It's probably 150 years old now. And it was much worse for the wear, I'd have to say, simply because in the desert nothing rusts. And the humidity or lack of humidity is constant. And the weather humidity is just the same year in, year out. And it's constant. And this unfortunately has seen a lot of major weather change in the last 45, 50 years. So it's just incredible how the humidity has destroyed this thing. I mean, I used to have another strap hanging down here, and I can't even get it out of the sheath anymore. And but in the desert, it lasted 100 years and it was fine. It was still in perfect condition when I got it. But since I've had it, with all the temperature changes, it's deteriorated radically. So that's my prized possession. It's fallen to bits now, unfortunately. So of course, I felt clearly that an exchange of gifts was totally in order here. And so we proceeded to give them some t-shirts, which they absolutely loved. They loved these t-shirts that I gave them. And then they invited us to join them around their evening fire, which of course we did. Paula and I were over at the combi having a short break as we were about to get ready to join the others at the campfire, when she looks at me and says, "Mike," and I look at her and she keeps looking at me and I go, "Well?" And she says, "Mike, look at my tummy. Look at my tummy." And I said, "You're not." She nods and says, "I think about 2 months, Mike. 2 months pregnant." I am just stunned, man. I slump back. "You're pregnant?" And we've just spent the last 3 weeks driving over the roughest and bumpiest and most terrible terrain that you could ever imagine, and you're 2 months pregnant?